Welcome to the course Make It Work React Hooks by Fang. This is the first video in the series, Hooks in React Applications.
Alright, let's start to build our application. First step is to create a React app from scratch. We will use the terminal to create the project folder. If you haven't done any React before, please refer to the official documentation of the React tutorial. Here, we just assume you have the basic tool downloaded already, such as npm and a node. If you haven't noticed yet, we use the TypeScript version, so the create React app command can be a bit different than what you normally use for the plain JavaScript version. The reason we chose TypeScript is that we can take advantage of the static typing while coding. Along the course, little by little, you can see the importance of using TypeScript as we add more and more features to the site. Alright, here's the site. Alright, now let's use a text editor to open the project folder. We're using the Microsoft code, and this is our typical React application, and this is app.tsx. We put the browser on the left and the text editor on the right. So in theory, whatever change we made to the editor should appear to the browser right away. So let's try delete a couple of lines, since we don't need them. Okay. And we can also change the text from Learn React to, for example, Hello React. Yeah, see, it works. Now we have our app set up. Let's try to build our first functionality, the search input box. Say we will code everything under this app for now. Let's add an input. This is really straightforward. As you can see on the left, this is a typical input box. Okay, a quick question arises. How do we know what we had typed into this input box so far? Because we need to grab this value to filter the list of Pokemons, remember? All right, so say we declare a value inside this function. And we can wire with this value with the input. And this is an official way of React driving input value. As you can see on the left, we can set any initial values. Literally, you can set anything you want. And also, we need to wire with the onChange event to the input box, so that whenever the new value comes based on the user input, we can grab this value and replace our value so that we expect it the UI changes. All right, that's before we do that, let's console log the future value. All right, let's give a shot. Okay, seems like no matter what I typed, so here, for example, I'm trying to type React, but somehow it doesn't work. So the question is, seems like we have the new value assigned and wire with the input, and the console log seems to print the future value, but this new value seems couldn't show up in the input box. So what went wrong? To answer this question, we need to refresh what is a React component. We have an example here. The app is a React component. If you take a close look at it, it's basically written using a JavaScript function. How React uses the component is that when it's ready to process it, it mounts the DOM elements based on the output of this function. Essentially, this function will be invoked at the mount, or generally we say the first render. And a component can be rendered multiple times throughout its life cycle. Each time when it's rendered, the function gets invoked. Say the first time this component is rendered and stay like this for as long as it wants before any user interactions. And then when we type something, the unchanged event is fired. We get the new value through the event. At this point, if the component manages to make a new render, we get the chance to invoke this function again. Let's go back to our question and run the render scenarios over our head. This time we're focused more on this function app. The first time this function gets invoked, we enter the function and assign the value to its initial value. And when we type something in the input, the unchanged event gets fired, and we get the new value captured and assigned to the value. Now the function gets invoked again due to the second render. We enter the function again and assign the value to its initial value. Do you notice anything interesting here? The value gets assigned to the initial value twice. This is exactly what we see in our problem. The input can display the new value, maybe because the previous value is thrown away. Let's slow down a bit further here. We have seen the value gets assigned each time when we enter the function. But actually this isn't accurate enough. What really happened is the value is a different variable each time. What does that mean? An invocation of a function call has its own memory space allocated for all local variables. Each function call has a new function scope. Therefore, the value in the second call isn't the same value variable in the first call. Exactly for this reason, we will not be able to keep the previous value between calls. It's like the movie Groundhog Day. No matter how many days you wake up, the day will be the same. Dan. It's a nice movie. I recommend you to watch it if you haven't. Okay, you might ask at this point, what do we need to do to make it work? All right, so let's take a look at this value. It seems to me that this value needs to be taken outside this function because we want to have kind of a mechanism to make it persistent across different render cores. So let's declare a variable v, which takes any type. And let's write a utility function to help us this job. Let's say it takes the initial value and we check if it's the first time when it hasn't been assigned yet. And then we want to assign it right away. This is just for the first time. And we also want to have a function to update this value to any future values, for example, second render or any future renders. Also, after assign the value, we want to quickly make a render to the app to refresh the screen. We also want to console log this value just to make sure. Okay. Let me take out this console log outside because this call will be called every time we call this function. The purpose of this function is to return this value and the mechanism to update this value. Okay, so only thing left is to finish this render app function. Yeah, because we need to manually render it. This is a hack so that I can render the function of the app once again. And essentially I took this code from the index and I make a hack so that I can store this element which has been already rendered and I borrow it here so that I can render it again. So I don't recommend anybody use this approach in the production code. We'll just use this for the demonstration. Okay, now we have this function. Let's plug it in. Let's rewrite the first line. So instead of assign to a local variable, we want to use this utility function underscore use state. And the initial value is still set to hello, right? We can delete our original line. So once the event has been fired, we don't want to assign to the local variable. Instead, we want to use this set value utility function that we just wrote. Okay, let's try it out. Okay, right away we can see the printout that the value has been set to the hello. Okay, this is just for the first render. Let's take a look at the input. We type the 2 and we get this value updated to hello 2. Interesting. And also you see the UI actually managed to render. And 3, okay, we can write a React. Oh man, it just worked. Let's take a moment to understand what we have wrote. This useState function, one, it is a function that gets invoked inside a component function. 2, it is a bit special because the variable it provides, v, is a state variable that is persistent across renders. 3, it triggers a render after the state variable change. You might have guessed this type of function actually is referred as a hook inside React dictionary. So if you really want to know the definition of the React hook, you can revisit this simplified version here, and it has all the main characteristics of being a hook function. So luckily, React provides an official version of this hook useState function. So we just need to import and use it. Let's give it a shot. Okay, let's first import from React useState. And since we are using the official version, we can delete our own version. We just need to change the useState, remove the underscore. I think pretty much that's it. Let's give a shot here. Refresh the screen and okay, I can type 2, 3. Let's try React. Yeah, it's just literally worked. So far, we have showed you a typical usage of a hook function. That is to provide a state that is persistent throughout the lifecycle of a component. And in general, since a hook is a function, it can actually perform a lot of different functionalities for a component. Throughout the rest of the course, we will introduce various of them one by one, such as useState, useEffect, useContext, useMemo, and useRef. By now, we should also get a sense of what the word hook stands for here. It means the function can be a plain standalone function by itself. It's only valid when used inside a component. For instance, the state variable is a local variable with respect to the component in the higher level. Moreover, it has been seamlessly integrated with the rest of React word. For instance, we don't need to manually notify the system to render. As long as it detects a state change, it'll trigger the render to the right component. Therefore, hook is a vivid description indicating these functions are some sort of add-ons which are supported by the system. Alright, hopefully by now you have a good understanding what is a hook, at least in why we need them in the first place and what kind of expectation we should have when using them. I believe this context is quite important for us to use hooks in daily development work. Believe it or not, lots of developers still think the hooks are magical and most treat them as a black box. But don't get me wrong, they're magical, but at the same time we also need to be rational about them so that we can run these live scenarios in our head when we run into trouble in the future. Alright, cool. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next chapter where we will introduce the first hook, useState.